Today we celebrate the Epiphany of the Lord, and as we celebrate this, usually, even among the Hispanics, they call it Tres Reyes, the Three Kings Days. The stress seems to be on the kings, that the kings came to see Jesus, and the three kings bearing gifts, and they came from the Orient, etc., etc. But Epiphany comes from the Greek. It actually means a showing out, that this was the day that Jesus was seen by people other than his mother and foster father. So Jesus manifests himself to the world. That's what Epiphany is. That's what Epiphany is. That Jesus is making himself known to the world now. And so we have these three visitors. And tradition holds that they were kings. That belief comes around the 4th century. The word magos in Greek means like an astrologer, which makes sense. They saw the star, they followed it. So they were the magi. It's the word from which we get magic. They were the magi. And these magi brought gifts. So because they brought such rich gifts, now we think that they're kings, and it led us to believe as such. And so now we have these three kings. And in all the nativity scenes that I have ever witnessed, there is always one king that is not looking at Jesus, except in this one. You depend on things like that, and then you come in here and you say, oh, this is going to mess everything up. If you look at the nativity scene outside, so block this one out of your memory for now, okay? If you look at the one outside, go to the one at your house, okay? You'll see one usually kneeling down, and he seems to have a fair complexion, and so he's from the east as far as Poland and that whole area there. You'll see another one who's very dark complexion, looks African, and represents kind of the African people. And then you get someone who looks more Western. They represent the West, Europe, etc., and they're there. Well, one's kneeling and looking at Jesus and has a gift in his hands. The other one is usually standing there doing the same, looking at Jesus. But check your nativity scene at home. Check the one outside. There is one that's standing there like this. And you want to think that he might not have made the dress rehearsals. That he didn't know what he was supposed to do. It's funny when we think about these three kings coming from so far away. I'm going to quote a buddy of mine who's actually a native son of this parish, Father Mark Weiss. And he's talking about the struggles these kings must have had. He said it must have been so hard traveling for so far in their big ceramic bodies, unable to move, just going across the desert. Now when I look at this king, the one who's just kind of whimsically looking out, I think, what was he thinking? Now I know they're just statues, okay? But if you know anyone who's an artist, or anyone who likes to create, the statue or the piece of art is always based on some reality. Even if it's a reality in the person's imagination, they have a particular purpose for which they pose that character in that way. And so I'm imagining this whole story. We don't get the backstory. Now there's prophecies. We hear Isaiah says they're going to come from Sheba and Seba. All the nations and their riches will come here. Psalm 72 says the same thing. The multitudes are going to come and rejoice because this great king is coming into the world. But we don't hear much about the Magi. So I was meditating on this one time, and I thought, what is that guy thinking? Now, if he was a king, he probably had a castle. He probably had a kingdom. He probably had many riches, and he probably also had many responsibilities. He might have had a family. And so he left that family, he left that kingdom in order to pursue a baby. And not even a baby that he can negotiate with. Not even a baby he can have diplomatic relations with. This is a baby. So it really doesn't do him any benefit to come and visit this king. It benefited him more if he'd have dealt with Herod. Because Herod's a king, he has power. What about this baby? So what is this guy thinking? Because the other kings are looking right at the baby, but he's kind of looking out. I wonder if right before he left his kingdom that there was some kind of coup or some kind of rebellion. Maybe he'll have nothing to go back to. That I wonder if something didn't happen to his family. Maybe it was a kingdom at war and he lost his family. And mortality was high back then for any number of reasons. Or maybe being a king, being wealthy, being safe and secure in his kingdom, there was still something missing. Something that created enough of a void that it got him up and moving. Moving to somewhere where he'd probably never been before. Something that got him going. But yet he's kind of whimsical, he's thinking, he's daydreaming almost. And as I was imagining, what could this king possibly be saying? If he believed that was God in that crib, then his gold is so much straw. Because God can make gold. If he bore him frankincense, he doesn't need frankincense. Even through the prophets at times, God says, your sacrifices are loathsome to me. I can make sacrifices. It's no big deal. I can make frankincense. And certainly myrrh would have been nothing. It's God. He doesn't have to worry about those things. And perhaps that's what he was thinking. What gift can I possibly give to a God? What can I possibly give to God that God himself cannot create? And at that moment, I believe he found his answer. And I believe I found mine too. Go up and look at the nativity scene, the one outside or the one at your house. Look at that king who seems to be daydreaming. Get right up in his face, almost as if you were going to converse with him. And ask yourself the question, what is the one gift that God will not give to himself? What is this king looking at? And at that moment, I believe you will probably conclude as I did, that the one gift that God cannot provide for himself, and really the only gift that he wants, and the only thing that that king was looking at, the gift is you.